The labor market was booming in February. Does that help cushion any blow that we get from coronavirus? And does it reduce the odds, say, of recession?
It does help cushion the blow. That's really important. A lot of that momentum came in leisure and hospitality, which was ramping up in the first 2 months of the year. The problem is I was at that same conference that Steve got canceled. I was going to be on the panel with Steve. He was going to be interviewing me, and that is over. And I've seen several conferences here in Chicago canceled in the last few days, and was in a hotel where they told the workers they would no longer have the jobs they thought they had for them. So it's already starting to hit the major conference centers. We are one of them here in Chicago. The layoffs are real for hourly workers who do not have sick days, to also, if they're out sick, to be able to have that cushion. And what we really want to try to do, the good news is we had this momentum going into it, is we want to bridge this troubled waters of the coronavirus with some fiscal stimulus that helps us to not allow the losses we see mutate into a financial crisis for companies that all of a sudden are short of cash flow, can't get access as they once did to credit markets, and for small, middle-sized businesses and consumers. And I think that's what we're going to need to see so that we come out of this on the other side less scathed and able to heal after the coronavirus hits. We have a much more service-based economy than China does. Austin Goolsbee has a great piece on this, and I think we're much more vulnerable in that way. Also, plants, all you need is one person in a plant to show positive for coronavirus, and you shut a plant down. And one of the things we're looking at with many of our clients is, in fact, what are their key people that they need to have backup for during the crisis to sustain business. But on the flip side of it, how do we deal with bridging this crisis, making sure your suppliers are solvent, and dealing with supply disruptions even in the United States as well as abroad?
Do you look toward China and South Korea and Italy and other countries that have been more advanced and where this has happened first as any sort of template for what could happen to this economy, Diane?
Well, the problem is they keep adding on, and so it's what is not a health pandemic yet, classified by WHO, is what I call an economic pandemic. And the global effect of all these things happening simultaneously is compounding the impact and the fallout for the United States, which is later to the game. But as you mentioned, we cannot do the kinds of extremes that China did to contain the virus, and that creates its own subset of problems. What we'd like to do is keep the well-being of people. There's a fine line between prudence and panic, and companies are trying to be prudent by not allowing their employees to be exposed to the virus. The state laws, if they make someone show up for work where someone ends up being sick, they're liable in many ways for workman's comp on that. So there are financial incentives for companies to also pull back in the midst of this, and I think that's very important. Yes, we can work at home, but if we're not working at home, we know that the online economy just cannot begin to compensate for what we lose by not going out to a movie theater or not going out to a sporting event. Those kinds of losses don't get recouped. And so we need to be in a really good spot at the other side of this to be able to take off again with stimulus.